My beloved child. Stop scrolling for a moment. There is a reason your eyes landed here at this exact second. Out of countless messages, countless voices, countless distractions competing for your attention, something unseen guided you toward these words. You may think it was coincidence. You may think it was curiosity. But deep within your spirit, there is a quiet feeling that knows otherwise. Something is waiting for you. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not someday in the distant future. Now. And before this night passes, before another sunrise stretches across the horizon, there is something your heart must hear. I see the questions you have never spoken aloud. I see the moments when you smiled while carrying invisible sadness. I see the nights when you stared at the ceiling, wondering if someone out there was thinking about you the way you think about them. I see the hidden hope you protect from the world because you are afraid that if you speak it aloud, it might disappear. You tell yourself you are fine. You tell yourself you have moved on. You tell yourself that whatever is meant for you will eventually find you. Yet there remains a space inside your heart that no achievement, no distraction, no conversation has fully filled. You know exactly which space I am speaking about. The space reserved for a connection your soul has been searching for longer than your mind can remember. And tonight, that space is trembling. Because something has changed. Something that has remained hidden is beginning to move. Something written in silence is beginning to find its voice. Listen carefully. For what I am about to reveal was not meant for everyone. Many will hear these words and dismiss them. Many will leave before understanding why they were called here. But the one this message was meant for will feel it. Not in the mind. In the heart. Because there is a letter. A secret letter. Not written with ink alone. Not written on ordinary paper. Not written for ordinary eyes. A letter carrying emotions that have been trapped behind walls for far too long. A letter connected to a soul whose journey has been moving toward yours through unseen paths. And before tomorrow arrives, you must understand why this letter exists. Because its story begins long before the words were ever written. You see, there is someone whose heart has been fighting a battle you know nothing about. Someone who appears strong on the outside while carrying storms within. Someone who has spoken your name only in private moments. Someone who has imagined conversations that never happened. Someone who has replayed memories, signs, feelings, and possibilities over and over again, searching for clarity. You may not know who this person is. Or perhaps a face is already appearing in your mind. Do not rush to conclusions. The deeper truth is still hidden. And that hidden truth is exactly what makes this story extraordinary. Because this person has spent a long time trying to ignore what they feel. They tried logic. They tried distance. They tried convincing themselves that the connection they sensed was nothing more than imagination. Yet every attempt created the opposite result. The harder they tried to forget, the more they remembered. The more they ran, the closer they felt to you. The more they buried their emotions, the louder those emotions became. At first, they resisted. Then they questioned. Then they surrendered. But surrender did not bring peace. It brought realization. A realization that frightened them. Because some feelings are easy to explain. Others are not. And what they felt could not be explained. Not completely. Not rationally. Not with ordinary words. Imagine carrying emotion so powerful that every song reminds you of someone. Every quiet moment returns you to thoughts of someone. Every unexpected sign feels connected to someone. That is what this person has been experiencing. Day after day. Night after night. And while the world around them continued moving forward, a part of their heart remained focused on one thing. You. What makes this even more remarkable is that they never intended for this to happen. They did not wake up one morning deciding to feel this way. The connection unfolded gradually. Like a distant melody becoming louder. Like a sunrise appearing before anyone realizes darkness is fading. At first, they ignored the signs. Then they noticed them. Then they could no longer escape them. And eventually, they found themselves sitting alone, holding thoughts they could not share with anyone else. Because how do you explain a feeling that refuses to leave? How do you explain a connection that continues growing even during silence? How do you explain a heart that keeps returning to the same person no matter how many directions life takes? The answer is simple. You cannot. And that is why the letter was written. Not because they had all the answers. Not because everything suddenly became clear. But because keeping those emotions trapped inside became impossible. The letter began as a single thought. One sentence. One confession never spoken aloud. One truth hidden beneath countless layers of fear. But once the first words appeared, something unexpected happened. The rest followed. Like a river breaking through a dam. Like years of silence transforming into honesty. Like a soul finally admitting what it had been carrying all along. Every sentence revealed another piece of their heart. Every line carried another secret. Every word brought them closer to a truth they had been avoiding. And as they wrote, memories returned. Not ordinary memories. The moments that changed everything. The moment they first realized you were different. The moment your presence lingered after you were gone. The moment they caught themselves smiling because of a thought connected to you. The moment they realized this was no longer a passing feeling. My beloved child, there are things within this letter that would surprise you. There are emotions hidden between the lines that even the writer struggles to fully understand. There are confessions that have never crossed their lips. There are truths they have guarded for so long that speaking them feels almost impossible. Yet somehow those truths found their way onto the page. And what those words reveal is far more powerful than affection alone. Because this is not merely a story about love. It is a story about timing. About growth. About healing. About two paths moving through different seasons while being drawn toward the same destination. You have experienced your own battles. You have walked through disappointment. You have carried wounds that others never saw. You have questioned whether genuine connection still exists. There were moments when your faith in love felt fragile. Moments when you wondered if opening your heart was worth the risk. Moments when loneliness felt louder than hope. Do you remember those nights? Do you remember the promises you made to yourself? Do you remember saying that if love ever found you, it would have to be real? Not temporary. Not confusing. Not half-hearted. Real. The remarkable thing is that somewhere, someone else was making similar promises. Somewhere, another heart was reaching the same conclusions. Somewhere, another soul was being shaped by experiences that would one day allow them to understand yours. Yet neither of you could see the full picture. Not then. Not yet. Because certain stories unfold slowly. Certain revelations require preparation. Certain encounters require transformation before they can truly happen. And that is where the mystery deepens. Because while this person was writing the letter, something unexpected occurred. Something they did not anticipate. Something that changed the entire meaning of what they were writing. Halfway through the letter, they stopped. Not because they ran out of words. Because a realization struck them. A realization so powerful that it left them staring into silence. For the first time, they understood that their feelings were not simply about desire. They were about recognition. Recognition of something familiar. Something meaningful. Something deeper than surface attraction. And that realization frightened them. Because recognition carries responsibility. Once you recognize what your heart truly feels, pretending becomes impossible. Once truth reveals itself, denial loses its power. Once honesty arrives, excuses begin to disappear. The letter changed after that moment. Its tone shifted. Its words became more vulnerable. More courageous. More real. And hidden among those words was a question. A question they never expected themselves to ask. A question connected directly to you. But before I reveal that question, there is something else you must understand. The person who wrote this letter is not perfect. They have made mistakes. They have regrets. They have moments they wish they could revisit. There are things they wish they had said differently. Things they wish they had done differently. Opportunities they wish they had not allowed fear to steal. The letter contains traces of those regrets. Not as burdens. As lessons. Because sometimes the greatest teacher is the road we wish we had traveled differently. And sometimes the deepest wisdom emerges from the moments we nearly lost ourselves. The writer understands this now. Perhaps more than ever. That understanding is why the letter exists at all. Without those struggles, it might never have been written. Without those disappointments, the truth might have remained hidden. Without those difficult seasons, the courage to speak honestly might never have arrived. Every tear served a purpose. Every setback carried meaning. Every delay prepared something important. And now, as the hours move closer to tomorrow, the energy surrounding this message grows stronger. Can you feel it? That strange sense that something significant is approaching? That feeling that there is more happening beneath the surface than you currently understand? Pay attention to that feeling. Because it is not random. The heart often senses change before the mind recognizes it. The soul often notices movement before the eyes can see it. And tonight, movement is everywhere. Pieces are shifting. Walls are weakening. Truths are rising. What was hidden is beginning to seek the light. And somewhere within the secret letter, one particular passage carries extraordinary weight. The writer almost erased it. Almost deleted it. Almost convinced themselves it was too much. Too vulnerable. Too revealing. Too dangerous. Yet they left it there. Because deep down they knew it was the most honest thing they had ever written. Those words spoke about longing. Not desperate longing. Not unhealthy attachment. Something far deeper. The longing to be understood. The longing to be seen. The longing to share a connection untouched by masks and pretenses. The longing to stand before someone and say, "This is who I truly am." And in those words, your presence appeared again. Not as a fantasy. Not as an illusion. But as a possibility. A possibility that refused to disappear. The more they wrote, the clearer that possibility became. And then something happened that neither logic nor coincidence can fully explain. A memory surfaced. A specific memory. One detail. One moment. One seemingly small event that suddenly revealed a much larger truth. The kind of realization that changes everything after it arrives. The kind of realization that makes the past look different. The kind of realization that causes a person to whisper, "How did I not see this before?" The letter became quiet after that. The writer paused. The room around them felt different. Time itself seemed to slow. Because the truth they had uncovered was impossible to ignore. And what they understood in that moment became the foundation for everything that followed. My beloved child, if I told you that the most important words in the entire letter have not yet been spoken, would you believe me? If I told you that what has been revealed so far is only the beginning, would your heart remain open long enough to hear the rest? Because there is still something hidden. A final layer. A deeper confession. A secret nested inside the secret. And this is where the story becomes impossible to predict. The writer never intended to include it. In fact, they promised themselves they would not. They decided it was safer to leave it unsaid. Safer to protect themselves. Safer to maintain control. Safer to remain silent. Yet silence has limits. And eventually, truth demands a voice. That voice emerged in the final pages. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Powerfully. Inevitably. What appeared there was not merely a statement. It was a revelation. A revelation connected to a future they had only dared to imagine. A future involving choices. Crossroads. Possibilities. And a question that only one person could answer. You. Even now, as these words reach you, the story remains unfinished. Because the letter itself remains unfinished. There is still one page left. One final section. One final truth waiting to be revealed. And what is written there changes everything. The writer stared at those last lines longer than any others. Their hands trembled. Their heart raced. Part of them wanted to continue. Part of them wanted to stop. Because once those final words existed, there would be no taking them back. No hiding from them. No pretending they had never been felt. The last page carried a risk. The risk every genuine heart eventually faces. The risk of honesty. And that honesty contains something astonishing. Something connected to tomorrow. Not next month. Not years from now. Tomorrow. A timing so specific that it startled even the writer. A realization so unexpected that they questioned whether they should include it at all. Yet they did. Because some truths arrive with urgency. Some messages refuse to wait. Some moments carry windows that do not remain open forever. The writer sensed this. And the closer they came to finishing the letter, the stronger that feeling became. As though unseen forces were urging them forward. As though every experience they had lived was leading toward one final sentence. One final confession. One final revelation. And that revelation is still hidden. For now. Because before those words can be understood, there is something else you must discover. Something connected to your own journey. Something connected to why this message found you tonight instead of any other night. Something connected to a sign you may have overlooked. A sign that appeared recently. A moment that seemed ordinary at first. Yet carried meaning far beyond what you realized. And when that sign is finally understood, the final page of the letter will make perfect sense. Until then, the secret remains sealed. The last words remain unread. The final confession remains waiting. And what happens when that final page is opened, is a story for part 2. There was a reason I could not reveal everything at once. Not because the truth was hidden from heaven. Not because the story was incomplete. But because your heart needed to travel through the silence before it could understand what was waiting on the other side. And now, my beloved child, listen carefully. The sign I spoke of was never meant to appear with flashing lights or dramatic announcements. It arrived quietly, disguised as something ordinary. That is how many of the most important moments enter a person's life. They do not knock loudly. They whisper. Think back. There was a moment recently when someone's memory surfaced unexpectedly. Perhaps you were busy. Perhaps your mind was focused elsewhere. Yet without warning, a particular thought appeared. A face. A feeling. A name. A memory. You brushed it aside because it seemed random. But what if it was not random? What if certain thoughts return because unfinished emotions still exist somewhere within the story? What if some connections continue speaking even when words have stopped? The world teaches people to dismiss these moments. To explain everything away. To ignore the quiet language of the heart. Yet the heart has a wisdom that logic often discovers too late. And the moment that memory returned to you, something else was happening far beyond your awareness. The one who wrote the letter was remembering as well. Not on the same day. Not at the same hour. But close enough for the invisible threads between stories to begin tightening once again. They were sitting alone. Surrounded by ordinary circumstances. Nothing remarkable. Nothing dramatic. Yet inside, everything felt different. Because the closer tomorrow approached, the harder it became to ignore what they had written. Words have power. Especially honest words. Once truth is placed before your eyes, you cannot pretend it does not exist. Every sentence from the letter stared back at them. Every confession echoed. Every hidden emotion demanded acknowledgement. And suddenly they realized something that shook them completely. The letter was never really about expressing feelings. The letter was about releasing fear. Fear had controlled so much of their journey. Fear of rejection. Fear of misunderstanding. Fear of vulnerability. Fear of being seen completely. For years they believed safety lived inside silence. Yet silence had never protected them. It had only prolonged the ache. It had only extended the waiting. It had only deepened the questions. The truth was simple. Silence was costing more than honesty. And that realization changed everything. My beloved child, there comes a moment in every soul's journey when remaining hidden becomes more painful than stepping into the unknown. That moment had arrived. The walls they spent so long building were beginning to crack. The carefully guarded defenses were weakening. The excuses were running out. And beneath all those layers, one undeniable truth remained. You mattered. Far more than they ever admitted. Far more than they ever intended. Far more than they could continue denying. As the night deepened, they returned to the final page. Again. And again. And again. Reading the same lines. Questioning them. Doubting them. Then believing them. Then doubting them once more. Their emotions moved like waves. One moment courage. The next moment fear. One moment certainty. The next moment hesitation. Because the final page contained something irreversible. Once spoken, it could not be unsaid. Once revealed, it could not be hidden. And the closer they came to that truth, the more their heart trembled. Not because the feeling was weak. Because it was real. Truly real. There is a difference between a passing emotion and a soul-level realization. Passing emotions come and go. Soul-level realizations remain. They stay with you through seasons. Through distance. Through change. Through uncertainty. This realization had remained. No matter how much time passed. No matter how much life changed. No matter how hard they tried to move in another direction. Somewhere inside them, your presence remained. Like a light they could never completely forget. Like a melody they could never fully stop hearing. Like a chapter they could never truly close. And finally they stopped asking why. Finally they stopped fighting. Finally they stopped pretending. Instead, they allowed themselves to feel the truth completely. That was the moment everything shifted. Not externally. Internally. The most important transformations always begin there. Within the heart. Within the soul. Within the hidden places nobody else can see. That night, while the world slept, they sat with the letter one final time. The room was silent. The air felt heavy with anticipation. And then they read the sentence they had avoided for so long. A sentence so honest it almost frightened them. A sentence that revealed the deepest secret hidden inside the entire letter. It began simply. Not with grand promises. Not with dramatic declarations. Just honesty. Pure honesty. The kind of honesty people rarely speak because it leaves them completely exposed. The sentence said that despite every attempt to move forward, despite every effort to convince themselves otherwise, despite every fear and every uncertainty, their hearts still returned to you. Again and again. Not because they forced it. Because it belonged there. The moment they read those words aloud, something changed. The struggle ended. The resistance disappeared. The battle they had been fighting for so long suddenly felt unnecessary. Truth had finally spoken. And truth has a strange power. Once it arrives, peace often follows. Not because every question is answered. But because the soul no longer needs to hide. For the first time in a long time, they felt free. Not free from caring. Free from pretending they did not care. There is a tremendous difference. Many people spend years hiding emotions they were meant to acknowledge. Years running from truths they were meant to face. Years convincing themselves that silence is strength. Yet real strength is honesty. Real strength is courage. Real strength is standing before uncertainty and speaking truth anyway. That is what the writer finally understood. And when they understood it, the final page began revealing something even deeper. Because hidden beneath every sentence was a question. Not a question written directly. A question woven between the lines. The question was this. What if the connection was never an accident? What if every delay served a purpose? What if every detour was preparing both hearts for a moment neither could have understood earlier? The more they reflected on that possibility, the more pieces began fitting together. Old memories suddenly made sense. Past disappointments revealed unexpected meaning. Missed opportunities no longer felt wasted. Everything seemed connected to something larger. A design invisible while it was unfolding. You have experienced this before, my beloved child. Moments that made no sense until much later. Painful chapters that eventually revealed hidden blessings. Closed doors that later protected you from paths not meant for you. At the time, it felt unfair. At the time, it felt confusing. At the time, it felt impossible to understand. Yet eventually clarity arrived. And when it did, everything looked different. The writer was beginning to experience that same clarity. The story they thought was filled with mistakes suddenly appeared filled with preparation. The delays they once hated suddenly appeared meaningful. The waiting they once resented suddenly felt necessary. Because some connections require growth before they can flourish. Some hearts must heal before they can fully receive what they seek. Some journeys must travel through darkness before they understand the value of light. And then came the realization that changed the meaning of tomorrow. Not tomorrow as a date. Tomorrow as a threshold. A crossing point. A moment where remaining the same would no longer be possible. Whether action was taken or not. Whether words were spoken or not. Something inside had already changed forever. The letter had accomplished its purpose. It had transformed silence into truth. And truth into courage. Yet there remained one final confession. One final piece that had never been shared. A piece so personal that even writing it felt impossible. For a long time they stared at the blank space where those words belonged. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. The cursor blinked. The page waited. The heart wrestled with itself. Should they write it? Should they leave it hidden? Should they protect themselves? Or should they finally say everything? Eventually, honesty won. Slowly, carefully, they began typing. Each word felt heavier than the last. Each sentence carried years of emotion. And what emerged was not what they expected. Because the deepest truth was not about longing. Not about regret. Not about fear. It was about hope. Hope that refused to die. Hope that survived disappointment. Hope that remained alive despite uncertainty. Hope that somehow continued believing in possibilities not yet seen. The final confession admitted that even after everything, a part of them still believed the story was not over. Still believed there was another chapter waiting. Still believed there was more left to discover. Still believed that what connected the two of you had not reached its ending. And when those words finally appeared on the page, tears filled their eyes. Not tears of sadness. Tears of release. Because carrying a secret for too long becomes exhausting. And finally the burden was gone. The truth existed. The letter was complete. Or so they thought. But just as they prepared to close it forever, something happened. Something unexpected. Something they never saw coming. Their attention shifted toward a memory buried deeper than all the others. A memory they had not visited in a very long time. A single moment. A single detail. A single realization. And the instant it returned, their entire understanding of the connection changed. The room fell silent. Their breathing slowed. Their eyes widened. Because suddenly they understood something they had missed all along. Something so important that it transformed every page of the letter. Every memory. Every emotion. Every question. Everything. The realization was not about what they felt. It was about why they felt it. And that discovery opened a door neither of you were prepared for. A door leading toward a truth far greater than either heart had imagined. A truth connected to the very beginning. Visible. Unavoidable. And when the writer understood it, they whispered words they never expected themselves to say. Words that revealed the final mystery. Words that changed everything. But those words cannot be revealed yet. Because once they are spoken, there is no returning to the story you believed you were living. And before that truth can be unveiled, you must first understand what happened next. What occurred in the hours immediately after the letter was finished. What sign appeared? What message arrived? What impossible coincidence forced the writer to question everything they thought they knew? That moment is where the real mystery begins. And that moment belongs to part 3.